Hello, everybody. Today is a video that I wanted to do that I had the privilege of actually talking about on YouTube with a channel that I am going to be linking to the bottom so that you guys can go check out this fantastic channel. It is called Paranormal Zone TV, and Noreen Balovic is the hostess, phenomenal woman. I love her. She's a great gal. And she actually had me come on and talk about the different types of witches that I have actually experienced within my years of studying to be a medicine woman. And I really appreciated that because I think it's important to understand there's different types of witches, and it's not like in the movies. Actually, they show how scary witches are, but I also have friends who are pagan, so I know there's gentle and beautiful and loving witches out there, and I know that with my friends that I've experienced a lot of amazing relationships, and they taught me a lot about their specific religion and what they do. So this isn't about friends who are witches who are horrible and whatever. No, this isn't about the good witches. I call them the good witches. This is about people who take any type of cult type tendency to create negative energy and create bad experiences for people. Some people even take it a little further. That's what this is about. I was also able to write about my experiences as well on, guess what? Of course, you all know Paranormal Underground. And Paranormal Underground magazine has been a wonderful outlet for me. Cheryl Knight Wilson and her husband, Chad, are the publisher and editors of the magazine. And I greatly appreciate them publishing my articles and giving me that outlet that sometimes you just need to have to get information out. Because for me, it's more an experience that I've had on my medicine path. And it's not something that I read. It's not something that I've seen on TV. It's actually experiences that I had. And I greatly appreciate that Paranormal Underground gave me that outlet for being able to write. And I wanted to show you, my first article is called Encounters, and I'm going to try to do this so that there's not a lot of glare. Let's see, oh, there. This is from October of 2017. And I have it titled Encounters with Dark Witches, Shapeshifters, and Skinwalkers. And so I included everything in on this one. But we're just going to talk about witches today. And this is the October 2017 issue. So if you all want to go and check out the magazine, and I like to order my copies. I like to feel them and touch them. I'm not one of those digital people, though you can get it digitally too, and I suggest you doing that if you want. But I like to have mine printed, and you can do that. Also, the next issue that I wrote was February 20th. February 2020. And this one is titled Cursed by a Persian Witch. And let's see if I can get it to where you guys can see it. I think that's the best. So that's another article that I did. And all the experiences that I had 3 were different. And the one thing that I think is important to note for anybody who's thinking, well, why did Rainbow have so many experiences with witches? And I think it's because once you're on your medicine path, that's not that you attract them to you, but you actually have to have experiences and learn how to deal with anything that comes across your path that's negative. And then being married to a medicine man. I think people just had this idea that, well, he's probably married to someone who is in the know, who obviously I was studying with him to become a medicine woman, but and other people. But I think people just assumed that I had certain abilities in whatever, even though I was green as grass, I didn't know anything. And so it was really a journey of just self-growth and experience. And it was learning the hard way. And you can't be on a path of saying you're a medicine woman and I think you have to understand that you have to have experiences, whether they're good and they're bad. And so for me, I'm grateful that I have those experiences with these particular women. I didn't look for them, but I think because I'm on a spiritual path and I consider myself a warrior for light, I think that pretty much spirit just said, hey, I think you can handle this, Rainbow. So we're going to have your path meet with this particular person and we're going to see how well you do, because you have to learn how to deal with the negative. In order for me to help anybody, I have to be able to know what to do if you come across somebody like this. And if somebody comes to me for help, I definitely have to be able to help them. And the way I can do that is by experience. I can hear about what to do and I can read about what to do, but each one of these cases was unique and different unto itself. And so what I wanted to do is take everything that I had learned and kind of share that with everybody, so that if you ever come across people like this, you'll understand what to do. Now, the first woman that I came across, I call her the Mayan witch because she came in from Mexico. Beautiful woman, just a gorgeous young woman, and we were about the same age. So that would probably make it, we were probably 24, 25 at the time when we met each other. And with her, I experienced being targeted, not so much in the sense that she was going to dangerous for me. I think I could have, with Thunderbow's help, been able to deal with her, but I was just really naive at the time, and I'm a lover, not a fighter. So for me, I just didn't really understand at the time why she had a problem with me. Now, I noticed with her that she had some type of strange possession to her. And I think that the one thing about people who are interested in witchcraft, and I think in the dark witchcraft, is they don't understand that there's a possibility that they can be possessed. And I know she was possessed because I saw her face change and it was just really kind of creepy. And so when I met her, she was just kind of a nice person. And she seemed to be normal in kind of the way that you would expect someone like a 24-year-old to be. But as we were talking, and when I had first met her, I noticed that her face would change and morph. And I didn't know if it was me, if other people had seen it, but it just seemed like whatever had possessed her was kind of showing itself to me, which I felt was really kind of creepy. And she had like a weird type of dysfunction, and that type of dysfunction is more psychopathic, because she would actually go into situations and cause problems on purpose. So she was extremely, her energy was very, very scattered. When I looked at her, she had those crazy eyes. And actually, every time that I did meet her, that's the one thing that I did notice. And I mentioned it to Thunderbow. I said, she's kind of got crazy eyes, but she was very beautiful. So it was like, I don't know if everybody saw that, but there was just certain characteristics that kind of showed themselves to me. And I think that's something that you have to look for. If you have a gut feeling that something's not quite right about somebody, then you have to listen to your gut, and you have to actually uh, stop and take a good look at what's going on, because I think that's the spirit aspect of who you are saying, look, there's something wrong here. She created problems, and actually, I should probably have started where I met her. I met her in Taos, New Mexico. I love Taos. My mom's from Taos. So she had come in, and a lot of young artists like to come to Taos. I think she was a dancer as well. And so I believe that she came up to Taos to kind of try to figure out what was up there, what she could be doing. I know that the crowd that I hung out with, that they were all artists and dancers, poets, writers, and we were all kind of creative in different ways, and that's why we like to hang out together. And the one thing that I noticed as weeks went by, when I would talk to her, I noticed that she would make comments about the different problems that she was having with some of the gals up at the Taos Pueblo. And I think she had problems because she was dealing in the negative aspect of witchcraft. I mean, that's just what she was doing. And you don't mess with those gals. There's some women up in the Taos Pueblo who, they're medicine people. It's a sacred land, and you just don't go up there and start messing with people. You just don't do it. But she just did it. And so as probably about 2 or 3 weeks passed, I got word back that she decided that she didn't like me, and she wanted to cause, I guess, problems for me. And I had different people saying, watch out for her, because she's just kind of a psychopath. But I'm not one to run away from any kind of danger like that. And it was only because I just believed in the goodness of people. And I think no matter how many negative people you come across, you can't let them affect the way you look at humanity, because this is just one person. And so, long story short, I got in contact with her. I went to the place where she worked, because she worked for a friend of mine. And I said, hey, I don't have a problem with you. Let's be friends. Let's not have this issue. And slowly but surely, she started warming up to me, and she was like, fine, okay, I don't have a problem with you. And I was grateful for that. I was really nervous the day that I had to go see her, because I didn't know what she was capable of. Thunderbow knew I was going, so he had my back. But the one thing that I noticed about her is that she would be talking to me, and she would just, whatever had possessed her just couldn't be contained in her body. She would morph, and her body would contort in ways that just weren't humanly possible. So I just decided, I'm going to keep my distance from this person. But the strangest stuff would happen. I would be driving down the main road in Taos, and she'd be standing by her car or walking, and she would turn and look at me and smile at me, kind of that exorcisty way. That's really creepy. And I'll never forget, one time I was walking to a gallery that I was working at in the middle of town, and there's a light in the middle of town in Taos. And she was going one way, I was going the other, and I waved and said hello to her, and she didn't say anything to me. She was grinning, and she had her head turned, and her head turned like in The Exorcist. There's no possible humanly way that a human head can turn the way that this woman's head turned. And she was grinning and smiling, and she walked across the street with the busy traffic, and I'm yelling, telling her to watch where she's going. And as her head is turning like an owl's head, turning all the way around, and it was just really creepy. And she got across the street, and she just started laughing as she's looking at me with her head turned, kind of looking from the back. It was just crazy. And I realized this gal really, this is somebody who's extremely possessed. And I talked to Thunder Boy. I said, what should be done about this? Do you go, or is someone put in your path like that so you can help them? Or do you just, go the other way because you don't want to have to deal with it? And he said, you know what, he didn't think that I should do anything. He said that I had to protect myself. He's glad that he knew, and that we'll just see what happens. Come to find out, one of the last conversations I had with her, she had told me that she had been fighting with some of the gals at the Pueblo, causing problems which didn't need to be caused. And she woke up one morning with all these blisters all over her body. And she was, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, really? And she's like, I was doing stuff I shouldn't have. And she's, I think I'm going to have to leave town. So she's going to go over to Santa Fe. And she said, well, I think that I think there were a couple of gals that she said, I just think that I'm in hot water with them. And I think I'm going to have to go. And within probably 2 or 3 days of her saying that, she left. And I was pretty happy about it, because it was just, you never knew what to expect from her. So this type of witch is somebody who probably decided to get into the cult. And I say cult because I think that there is a difference between women who are witches, who are cult-like, and pagans, and women who are part of covens, men and women who are part of covens, who take it as a beautiful religion, and have a different attitude about the craft altogether, because it's there's, maybe I should say more craft religion versus the cult. And so this woman was definitely taken over by the negative energy that she was allowing in her life. And that's what happens, is that possession happens. And I don't know if the person, unless somebody actually does an exorcism, if you can get a medicine man or woman, or, because I don't even know if she would have ever allowed another religion to come in to do anything. But they're lost unless somebody can come in who can actually do something for them. But one thing that I realized is that whatever was possessing her was showing itself to me, and just really creepy ways, with the eyes, with the contortion, the almost like it was pushing up against her skin, like it was something that was too big for her body, and it was really uncomfortable in her body because it didn't have enough room to stretch and to move around. And I know that's a bit creepy, but the one thing that I think is so important about this experience is that with her possession, she had psychopathic tendencies. And I think that's what happens to people who kind of open up to the dark. They actually become psychopathic, and they have a dysfunction to them that is it's random, because you don't really know what they're going to do at any given time, and it's pretty scary. So with somebody like this, you have to figure out, is it worth you helping them, or is it worth you protecting yourself? And so I chose to protect myself. I didn't know enough at that time anyways, because I was in the medicine way, let's see, about 4 years at that point. I didn't know hardly anything. And, and I think it was a good experience, but it scared the what out of me. Only because what do you do with somebody like that? So you have to be careful, and you have to have your guard up when you're deciding to do anything that has to do with ceremony. If you're deciding that maybe you want to learn a different type of religion, you can call it religion too, because my friends who are pagans, they taught me so much, but they're on the good and positive side, and they also know the negative as well. So I think when people open up to the darkness, and they open up to maybe wanting to get something, and they're willing to give up basically something that is very priceless, which is their soul, then they're going to pay the price, and not in ways that they will ever expect. So she was a good lesson for me to learn how to have my guard up and how to deal with somebody who I believed was possessed, and how I didn't allow her to impact my life. I put my foot down. I drew the line in the sand and said, "You're not going any further than this." And I think people have to understand too that you can't ask someone not to bother you out of fear. Michael and I have talked about that. You really have to tell somebody, "Hey, look, this is as far as you're going to go, because I'm going to fight. I'm going to, stand my ground." And that's kind of what I did with her. I stood my ground. I said, "Hey, look, let's just be friends. I don't have an issue with you." But it was also important to let her understand that I wasn't going to back down either. And it's not always the best idea to go to somebody's place of employment or their home. And actually, in this next story, I was actually in this woman's home. So I don't recommend that. But the only reason why I was able to do it, I felt, is because I knew the owner of the store. And I felt she was my friend. And it was kind of like neutral ground in a way, even though I knew this gal worked there. But that was interesting. The next witch that I came across was so unintentional. And it's really interesting when you get on the medicine path, how spirit will kind of direct you so that you can kind of learn your medicine. You have to learn how to protect yourself from different things. This woman was what I call the Hansel and Gretel witch. And it was because she did animal sacrificing. And what had happened is I had a very dear friend of mine named Teresa. She was a dancer, I was a dancer, and we thought that we would rent some space, try to find some space to rent so we could practice our dancing. Except I was a Middle Eastern dancer I've been for 30 years, and she did her spiritual Native American dancing. So we thought we might get together, figures choreographies out, have some fun with the creative dance aspect of life. And she had come across this house. A friend of hers told her about it, and she said, "Hey, Rainbow, I think I found us a space that we can rent." And I think we were going to rent it for 3 months. The woman was going off, and I think she was going to go travel for 3 months. And it was a roundhouse, and it was 2 stories, and it just had the bottom floor was just one huge big circular room that was the dining room, the kitchen, the living room, and then actually had a bathroom and a little sitting area, but it was all kind of one big room. And then you went upstairs, and then the upstairs was only one room, and it had a stove in the middle of it, potbelly stove, and just a bunch of windows and different types of beds that were just kind of like twin beds that were placed all around. And so we thought, great, not only could we dance there, but we can also stay there too if we wanted to spend days or whatever into the dance into the evening, and we can stay there and we don't have to drive off and go home. So I didn't see the place. I just trusted Teresa I trusted her. She's just a lovely soul. She's passed on now, but I just really loved her. And so I trusted her. And so she went and got the key from the lady, and 2 keys. And we paid the rent for 3 months. And let's see. So I came the next day after she got the keys, and she was really excited. She did say something to me. She said, "Well, there's a few things that I have to tell you, but I'm going to show you when you get there." So I met her there at the house, and I walked in, and it was really a cool house, but it had a really, really creepy vibe, just horrible vibe. So there's this table, and it's a huge like dining room table, and it's up against the circular wall, and it's probably the size of it was bigger than a door, you know, just it was massive. And on this altar was all this religious type of stuff, and but it wasn't Christianity. It was something else. I wasn't quite sure what it was, but all these dead birds, and they were kind of placed in certain ways on the altar. And I said, "What's this?" And she said, "Yeah, we're not allowed to touch anything on this altar." And that's what the woman called it. And I said, "Why didn't you tell me? Because if I would have known that there was an altar in this house with dead birds on it, I probably would have said, no, I don't think this is the place for us to rent." But she said, "Well, I don't know. She said, I didn't think it'd be a problem." I said, "Well, you know, this is not cool." So there was another cabinet, a glass cabinet pushed over to the side that has shelving on it, and had a glass door, and it had birds in that, and it had needles stuck in the birds. And I said, "Teresa, this is not a good thing. I mean, I don't think we should, you know, should have rented this place." And she said, "Well, she's gone, and we have the keys." And so we decided that we would come back and we'd stay the night and just kind of see how we felt about the place, because it was really cold. Even though it was in the middle of summer, it's extremely cold and just scary. And one thing that I don't like is big windows with no curtains. It just really bothers me, because I don't want to freak out and think something outside's looking in. And you knew something outside was looking in this house. You just knew it, because it had a really bad vibe to it. And it wasn't that nature outside had anything negative to it. It was just the energy in this house. It was a really strange, contained type of energy that didn't feel natural. So next day we come with our pack bag. I can't even talk. Our backpacks, and we're kind of excited because we brought our CDs and our music and all this stuff. And it was probably late afternoon, and we were doing some dancing and some choreographies and stuff. And we went out and got some dinner, I think, and brought it back. And then we just stayed for the night. And of course, it had electricity, thank goodness. Now, this house was like in the middle of just all these trees and shrub. You couldn't see it from the road. And if and this was in Taos as well. It was out in an area that is over by Valdez, and that's where my mom's from. And so it was just being in nature. It was just actually a very beautiful house, but we were out in the middle of just, it felt nowhere, but there were other houses, you know, a ways, but we were kind of isolated by ourselves. And as night came, the house just changed. It changed from something that didn't feel comfortable to something extremely ominous. And it just felt like there were things outside looking in, but not from nature, but from something else. And I've always suspected that this woman actually had these entities checking out to see what we were doing. And so we were not comfortable downstairs at all. We kept hearing these strange noises. We kept hearing creaks and something hitting windows. And it could have been just the house settling. I mean, you know, when you're freaked out, you're going to assume the worst. And we did. You know, we were like already freaked out. And when you turn the lights off in certain parts of the Taos area, depending on how far out you live from town, it's black. It's pitch black. So you can't hardly see anything, you know, you can't barely see your hand in front of your face. So anyways, we turn the lights off downstairs, we go upstairs, and we're just pretty much freaked out because we're hearing all these strange noises. All of a sudden, when we turned the lights off, we started hearing strange bird sounds. And we had the sense that we were being watched. And even though we were upstairs, we knew that, well, how could something be watching us unless we're looking in the windows? And we were on the second story, so second floor. So how could they see us looking in the window unless they were really tall, if they were something that could fly or levitate off the ground? So all of a sudden, after we had been in bed and we had, she's in her sleeping bag, guys, in my sleeping bag, and we put two twin beds like next to each other and we slept with our clothes on because we were just thinking, oh, well, if we have to get up in the middle of the night and run, then we better have our clothes on. And so we had our shoes right next to the bed, my bed, and she had her shoes next to her bed. We were in our different sleeping bags. And it was just one of those things where you just pull the sleeping bag over your face because you're that scared. So we were probably had been asleep for about 30 minutes when all of a sudden screeching sounds came up through the piping of the pot belly stove, and there were shrieks coming, and it sounded like something got caught in the pipes and was just ready to just break and open the pipes and come at us. And it was just loud shrieking, like bird sounds, but extremely loud, so loud that you had to put your hands to your ears because it was just like something was screaming at us, and that scared the crud out of us. Right after that happened, it was probably doing that for about 2 to 3 minutes. It just all of a sudden stopped, and this smell of kind of, I don't even know how to put it, like you're in a cave, that smell, like your wet earth smell, it immediately hit our nostrils. And I said, are you smelling that? This is like, oh my God, this is crazy. And she smelled it. And it just was throughout the whole room. And so this wet earth kind of, in that cave smell, that when you're dealing with well, if you've ever been to like Carlsbad Caverns or any of the other different types of monuments where you can walk down, and as you get further down, you can kind of, that musty smell, that's what this smelled like. And we both knew we were on the second level, and we weren't near the earth. So we were just pretty much freaked out. And probably, I'd say after that, we heard all kinds of noises, things hitting the building, the walls of the house. And then we both really felt like we were being watched, almost like something was hovered over the two of us and just looking down at us. 6 o'clock in the morning came, and we went ahead and just booked it out of there because we did not want to stay there another minute. And so we just made sure we got all our stuff. We made sure we were not in any of the rooms by ourselves. We just felt that we would be in danger if we were in whatever room by ourselves. And so I went downstairs with her, and we had all our bags packed, and I decided that I was going to walk outside and put all my stuff, my backpack, up in my truck, and some other bags that we had of like our CDs and all this other stuff that we had brought, because we brought a bunch of stuff because we thought we'd be staying there and just have it there, but we just realized that, hey, this is not what we wanted to do. And when I went outside, all these birds started screeching at me. It's almost like in the morning, like these birds just literally started just screaming. And it was unnatural because it was so early in the morning, and maybe it was before 6, maybe it was like 5 o'clock, 5:30. I can't remember. But long story short, I heard all these birds screeching, and I just it was just horrible. And I knew that they weren't screeching at me in a negative way. They were screeching at me for help. They were like, help us, help us. So I said, are you hearing this? And she's like, yeah, this is really crazy. So anyways, as we are getting ready to leave, she says, I want to give this to you. And she handed me her key. And she says, I can't come back here. I'm not coming back here. You'll have to take care of talking to this woman and giving her back the keys. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? And she said, no, I can't do this. It was that scary. And I'm like, oh crap. So I got the key, closed the door, and we went off. And so just so you understand, I mean, I knew that we were in a place with a woman who was really dealing in the dark occult type of witchcraft, the shape-shifting type of witchcraft. And what I ended up doing is I had a friend of mine who was visiting me because at that time I was out on my family's property living in a teepee on a gypsy wagon. And so there's obviously no shower, and there's, we had an outhouse, but get a little tired of that. So I thought, well, we can just come back here, my friends and I, and just use the bathroom and shower and do all that kind of stuff. And so friends who came from out of town, one of them was a guy named Phil Toops. He came to visit me, and I took him there to the house, and he was freaked out. And this is a guy who's a bodybuilder who works for at that time, the penitentiary out over in Houston. And he didn't like it either. He just thought it was crazy. So one of the times that I was there with Phil, there was a big black dog, huge. And it looked like a wolf, maybe a little bit bigger, like maybe a timber wolf. And it didn't come at us. It was just walking around. I'd never seen this dog before the couple times I had been there. And so I told Phil we needed to leave really quickly. And when we got into my truck, it started coming towards the truck, and I just turned around and I went back down this road and went back to the camping area where I lived in Valdez. Well, lo and behold, when we got there onto the property that I was staying at, this black dog, or this black wolf, was there waiting for us. And I'm saying that this animal had to know where I lived. I mean, I don't even know how it knew where I lived, but it knew where I lived. So I had geese, and I had chickens, and I had goat, I had all these animals, and I'm like, oh, these are my babies. So I jump out of the truck, and I'm getting rocks, and I'm throwing it at this big black dog or wolf, and I'm hitting it, and I'm scaring it away. And then all of a sudden something hits me in my gut, and I realized that this particular animal was looking for help. And I felt really bad because I chased it away, and I went, and it was like this feeling of, what did I just do? This animal was needing my help. And I know some people might go, well, but it knew where you lived. That might be the case, obviously. But I think it was looking for help. A lot of animals were asking for help when I was over at that house. And I never saw it again. I never saw that dog again. And it just always made me sad, because I felt like I kind of didn't do what I was supposed to do. Well, long story short, when the lady came back, and she came back early, which is interesting. And the thing about this woman is that she was very young looking. She looked like she was in her, early 30s. An attractive gal, sandy blonde hair, not kind of petite, about 5'1" or maybe 5'3", something like that. But I realized that I was going to have to bring up the fact that I knew who she was. I knew what she was doing, and it was wrong. But you don't go to somebody's home like like somebody like her and confront them. That's the worst thing possible. So I'm going to tell everybody here, I had Phil with me. I had my friend with me. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. I wouldn't have, if I didn't have somebody there who could have at least helped me out or drug me out of there or, gone and got help. I would never have done that. But I had to give her back her keys, and she was already upset as it was because I think my friend Teresa had said, "Hey, we don't really want to rent the house," and because I think Teresa wanted some of her money back. The lady just wasn't happy about that, and so she came back early. And the day that I was supposed to meet her at her house, I told Phil, I said, "Come with me, but stay, just kind of stay in the background. I don't want her to know that you're with me." So I walked into the door, and she's standing by her altar. And oh, that's right. I should tell you something really interesting. I forgot. The morning that Teresa and I first woke up in the house, and when we left really early, and we came downstairs to the kitchen, all the birds had been messed up on the altar, every single bird, and there were some on the floor. And it was so dusty on this altar that you could tell that the birds had been moved. And we couldn't figure out who did that because we know it wasn't us. And so all we could do is just put the birds back the way we kind of thought they were, pick them up from the, I think there were a couple that fell on the ground, and just do the best we could because it was like, oh my God, we didn't touch this altar, but she's going to think we did. So anyways, also one thing else I did too is a couple of the birds, I just felt in my soul that I should take these birds out. I took the needles out of them, and I took them outside and put them out by different trees so that I could give them back to nature, because I just felt that I should do that. I wanted to do it to all the birds, but there are a specific few that just really broke my heart because they just were so beautiful. And I don't even know why she, what ceremony she did. I don't recommend that a lot of people do that either, because especially when you don't know what you're dealing with. And I didn't know. I was completely ignorant in this situation, completely ignorant. But I just felt with these, I think it was 2 or 3 birds, I felt I had to help them. So anyway, so she was angry because she looked on her altar the day that I went to go give her back her keys. She was really angry. And she looked at her altar and she said, "This has been messed with. Who touched my altar?" And I said, "Well, actually," I said, "nobody touched your altar." I said, "Well, what ended up happening is all the birds got messed up for some reason. Something messed with them, and some were on the floor, and we put them back the way we thought they were. So, but we didn't mess with your altar. We were just trying to put things back." She said, "I don't like my altar being touched." And I said, "Well, we didn't touch your altar on purpose. We were just trying to take care of stuff." And then she said, "What happened to the birds over here?" I said, "I took them outside." I said, "I put them by trees." I said, you had no right to do that to those birds. Why would you do that to the birds?" And so right in front of me, she became older and older and older. And it's like crazy. In front of me was a woman who was no longer in her early 30s. She was in her 60s. I'm looking at her going, oh my God. So what I believe that she was doing, I believe that this woman was taking the sacrificing birds, animals, and using their life force to keep herself young. And because when she was getting angry with me, she started coming towards me, and my friend Phil knew she was coming towards me. So he walked into the doorway and she stopped because she was coming right at me. And I told her, I said, nature is a biatch. And you know what? You mess with her, she's going to come back at you. And I said, you know what? You got karma coming back, because you can't mess with nature. You can't mess with animals and not have any repercussions. And I said, so this is on you. I said, but I did what I felt was right. I said, here's your keys. And I said, goodbye. And I walked out the door, and Phil followed behind me to make sure that she wasn't going to come at me. And though I feel like I did the right thing, I always felt really bad and guilty that I did not help the rest of the birds. Because I felt like I let some of the birds, I freed their little souls, and not me, but I just felt like giving them back to nature and doing ceremony and saying, here, little bird, and I said what I needed to say, so that they could kind of have some peace, that I wasn't able to do it to all the other animals that she had sacrificed. And in some ways, I felt like I really failed there because I just was not able to help all those animals out. And there were a lot. And I don't even know if there's other areas where she lived where she did the same thing. So she could have done this to thousands and thousands of animals and taking in their life force to keep herself looking young. But Phil saw her and he saw what she looked like. And so it's not just my eyes playing tricks on me. I saw what this woman had done. So with somebody like that, they're going to stay hidden. And that's the one thing why I call it a Hansel and Gretel witch, because she wasn't someone who you would meet on the street and you'd go, oh, she's a dark witch. No, you would never know that. In fact, you would look at her and she would just look like anybody else. But she is the type of witch where she likes to do her type of ceremony and her type of witchcraft in the shadows. So she's not going to bring a lot of attention to herself. And just to give you a good example, after I had confronted her and told her that, what she was doing wasn't okay, about 2 to 3 weeks after that, she had moved away. She was gone. She was no longer living at that house. She had moved away, and nobody knew where she had moved to. Teresa didn't know. The people who Teresa had found out about the house, how she found out about the house from, they didn't know. All they know is that this woman left and she had moved out of house. She had moved out of the area. And I think she moved out of the area because she was confronted. And that meant that her protection, her guise of doing it in the shadows was found out, because I obviously saw what she was doing. And I was willing to confront her about it, but I didn't have any ability to help out what the animals needed. And something that I talked to Thunderbow about, and Thunderbow said, you know what? He said, if you go back, he said, you're going to be really asking for trouble. He said, because someone like that it's like a wounded animal. Even though you might want to try to go help a wounded animal, it might bite you because it's in pain. And I kind of felt that way with her. She was found out. She wasn't hidden anymore, and so she probably wasn't feeling very good about how things had gone. And I don't know. And here's the crazy thing about it is why I don't understand why she would have rented that house. To the two of us, in thinking, well, why we wouldn't figure something out. I mean, I don't know if she just thought we were two, dancers, and that we would, we were just kind of youthful and young, and we wouldn't think twice about it, and we might think that the altar was cool. I don't really understand that. And I think that Teresa's friends who vouched for her and she vouched for me said, hey, Teresa won't have a problem with this. And but I still think it's kind of crazy that this woman would even rent it out and think that wouldn't be okay. It was everything so wrong about that. And it was just one of those things where, for instance, one time when I went to that house, it was probably a couple weeks, 3 weeks to a month after, I think it was actually just before she was supposed to come back. So maybe she came back 2 months after 2 months instead of 3. So I went back to the house to make sure everything was in order. And I went in the daytime. I didn't go at night. Kelly said, Thunderbow said to me, just make sure that when you go, you just have the door open. You don't let the door close behind you, because the door it just seemed like this front door just had a way of closing itself when you walked into the house. So he just said, just have the door wide open. So I did. I made sure everything was okay. Um, uh, and so on this particular time that I went back, this last time, um, I went to the front door and I put the key in, and I turned the key, and I was getting ready to push the door open, when the door opened itself and it creaked open all the way. And I knew that there was something in there because I heard a growl. Now, I know some of you might think that it was that black dog or that wolf, and I don't believe it was. I really, really don't. I mean, my gut told me that it wasn't. It was something that that woman called into that house to protect it. And also, if she suspected that maybe we knew something, or she was maybe mad at us because we didn't well, Teresa wanted her money back. I didn't care, because I was like, I didn't want to have to deal with this woman. But she was probably mad because we only had rented it for 2 months instead of 3, whatever. She might have had this thing waiting for whoever was going to come in, unsuspecting, But I was already, all my alarms were going off, ding, 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 ding. And so when the door opened by itself and I heard the growl, and then I saw a shadow in the back area by the altar, I realized that I wasn't going to go into this house. And so I just grabbed the door, closed it really quickly, locked it, and then I just ran back to my truck, and I went back to where I was camped out at. So there obviously was many things wrong with this woman, to say the least. But she, and I can't even tell you how old this woman was. I mean, if she was in her, what I call her early 30s or whatever, to, her into her 60s, I mean, she could have even been older. But when you're dealing with somebody like that, they're the real deal. I think she's one of the witches that I actually came across on my path that could have been very dark and dangerous, because she was, I believe she was a shapeshifter. And I think that she was one of those shapeshifters that would shift into whatever animal that she was taking its life force from. So she could have been, that big, crazy, screeching bird in the pipes of the stove that was upstairs. We don't know, but this woman just had taken her witchcraft to a whole new level. It was a whole new level of sorcery, which is very scary. And the one thing that I learned from her is that she was so average and normal that you're not going to have a calling card to whenever you come across a witch. There's no sign it's going to say, or there's not much you can look at, unless they're like the first gal that I talked about, where they look a little crazy. She had crazy eye. I'll always say crazy eyes. But this gal, there's no way of knowing anything that she was doing. So you never can tell. So you have to be very careful, and you have to follow your gut. Your gut is the way that you're going to know if somebody is true to who they are or they're not. And the gut's always right on, because your gut is just the God connection that you have, the universe connection, the grandfather connection that you have. And it's always going to serve you, and it will always lead you in the right way, and it'll always give you the right answer. So you just have to follow within yourself and actually trust in it. Because once I trusted in my gut, that gave me strength, and I wasn't afraid anymore. And because this can be very scary. And it can be scary too, because some of this can be life-threatening, like this this last witch that I'm going to talk about. I call her the Persian witch. This was years later. Let's see, what the first witch that I came across when I was about 24. I think the next gal was I think about 27 or 28. This third witch that I came across, I was in my 30s. I was in my early, let's see, I was probably about 34, 35. So I'm suspecting, because I'm in my dance career. I'm in the middle of it. I'm dancing in all these nightclubs and these restaurants, and I'm just doing what I love. And I become a top professional dancer. And I was teaching workshops, and I was doing all kinds of stuff that I love doing. So I wasn't really in my medicine mode anyways. I had my mindset was all dance, everything that had to do with Middle Eastern dance. I was a belly dancer. I taught Egyptian cabaret, so that's where my mind was at. So what was interesting about this next gal is that I had gone into a new restaurant, and they just opened up, and I had started dancing with them, and another friend of mine had started dancing as well. So we were pretty excited to be dancing at this Persian restaurant together. And it was a wonderful restaurant because, they had the dance floor, and they had the lights, and then, it was just wonderful. The people were fantastic. So probably within my, I hadn't been dancing there very long, maybe a month or two. One night I was dancing, and it was, I believe it was maybe the Persian New Year. It was really crowded, and I got introduced, and I came out, and everybody's applauding and laughing and yelling Layla, because that's my dance name is Layla. And I'm just, I'm in my element. I was just in my jam. I just loved it. And I noticed that halfway through my dance that I started feeling like crap, really, really bad. I was feeling so bad, and it hit me like that. It wasn't like it came on gradually. It was just like, boom, it hit. So I had to actually end my show early. And I went running to the bathroom. And this is, I'm sorry, I should do a little caution here, because this is kind of a little graphic. But I put my face over the sink, and I just had mucus coming out of my nose like a faucet. I mean, like it's like coming out, gushing out of me. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to go to the hospital. They're going to have to call an ambulance, because I couldn't get it to stop. So that happened to me. And all of a sudden I just felt weak and horrific. And then I'm like, minutes later, I'm lying on the floor, and I don't have enough energy to get up. And so the owner of the restaurant knocked on the door, and he said, Layla, are you okay? Are you okay? What's going on? What's going on? And probably I was in there 10 minutes. So I got out, and when I got off the floor, and went to the door, I opened it, and he said, oh God, you look horrible. So you should go home. Go home. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to go home. So I got in the car, I came home, I barely made it. And from that day forward, I was sicker than a dog. I turned yellow. I turned this horrible yellow. It was like this, canary yellow. It was terrible. I mean, I felt like my insides, that I was actually being eaten alive from the inside out. It was really terrible. Anybody touched me, I would just yell because it hurt. There's no way I could lie down where it didn't hurt. I actually moved into the guest bedroom because my boyfriend at the time, I couldn't even have him be in bed with me, because he maybe touched me by accident, and it would just hurt. So I had him call a friend of mine, who is my mentor. She's my African priestess mentor, and she taught me quite a bit. I said, you have to have her come now. I'm dying. One thing I didn't know, I was dying. I knew that that they could take me to the hospital. They wouldn't find a thing wrong with me, because that's basically what my boyfriend wanted to do. And I said, no, I think I know better what I need to do. So V came like the next day, and she brought all her herbs and her medicine. And she took one look at me and she knew exactly what had happened. And so she said that the inside of me was like, if you think of a cheesecloth that had been kind of, the mesh was like just torn open, and that I was just being torn open slowly. And she said that, yeah, I'm sure she's right. I probably had a couple weeks to live. And I don't think they would have been able to figure out what it was, in an autopsy. I don't think they could have. Anyways, V gave me some horrible tea that she basically was going to force down my throat if I didn't agree to drink it. And within probably 4 or 5 days, I was better. And she told me what to keep doing and the teas to keep drinking and all this stuff. And I did it. And then she did something that shocked the hell out of me. She pointed her finger at me and she said, shame on you. She said, you know better than this. She said, you always protect yourself. She said, even when you're dancing, that you're even more vulnerable when you're dancing. She said, you should always protect yourself. And she was right. And I just was in the moment of dancing, and I didn't even think that I had to protect myself. But when you're creative and when you're kind of in that mode of giving to people, you're not protected. And it's a shame that you even have to be, but she was right. I didn't protect myself. And so she said that I had been, unfortunately, what she basically said was cursed. And she said she knew what had happened. And she said, but what I want you to do is you have to go confront this witch. You have to go confront this woman and tell her you know what she did. And, I just was freaking out. I didn't want to have to go confront anybody. I said, I don't even know who this person is. We don't even know what's going on. We have no idea. So, and she said, I know what's going on. You don't. And she was right. Anyways, this is how it always works out. When you're on the right path, I think that just spirit always kind of will give you the answers as you're looking for them. So after V had left, a friend of mine had called me and she'd asked me how I was doing. And I said, oh, I'm doing much better. And she ended up telling me that she had her cards read, and that the card reader told her that somebody was trying to ruin her career, and that they were whatever. I can't even remember everything she said. And she believed this card reader. And I said, why would you believe somebody that you just met one time? And she said, oh, I don't know, I just did. And she said, and she told me what she looked like, and she said she had dark hair. And I'm like, yeah. And so she said, yeah, a woman who's close to me, who I work with dark hair. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. So she's thinking it's me. And so anyways, I was really upset. And so I said, well, what did you do? And she said, well, I got some help. And then she told me about this woman who's at the restaurant, who's a customer, who is a Persian witch. And so she got her to help her out, and she had her take care of whoever this was. And I don't know if my friend was telling me because she felt guilty, or if she just really didn't think it was me. But I can't believe she didn't allude to this woman that it was me, because I got horrifically sick just like that. I said, well, you got to show me who this woman is. And so 2 weeks later, I'm getting ready to go back to the restaurant because I gotten myself healthy again. And she and I were dancing this particular weekend and we started, I think we danced on a Friday and a Saturday. So that 2 weeks later on a Friday, I drove to the restaurant, and I was just wanting to hide under my blankets because I didn't want to have to confront this woman but V said it was part of the healing process to complete it. So I listened to her. So anyway, so I get to the restaurant, I meet my friend and she says, hey, she's here. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, can you show her to me? So we walked out towards where this huge, big, where all the tables are in the dance floor, this huge, gigantic room. And there she is in how they have the tables and the layout of this room was like in Las Vegas, where you had different levels going up and you had tables on different levels. So she was up on the top level where they could look down on the dance floor, while we were dancing, they could look down at us. Not in a negative way, but just so they could actually see better. But she was up on this top level and she turned and looked at us and she was really shocked because there my friend and I were together. And so she looked really funny and my friend waved and then I waved. And so I was the first one to go on. So thank goodness I went and danced first because I'm sure I was a nervous wreck and I knew this woman was in the audience. And when I got after I was done and I got dressed and got my clothes on, my regular evening clothes, I went over and I said hello to her and she invited me to sit down. And she said to me that she was very surprised to see me. And I said, yeah, well, I was really sick. And I said, but I'm much better now. I said, I had my African priestess mentor came and she helped me get better. And then this woman looked at me and she eyed me up and down and she said, maybe I was wrong about you. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, well, I didn't do exactly what V said, where I'm like, you're the one that did this to me. I didn't do that. I didn't think that was what I really should do. I thought, well, that old saying of keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. I thought, well, I'll just keep this gal a little closer as a friend, so that I could actually keep tabs on what this woman was all about and what she was doing. So lo and behold, many weeks went by. She was there watching us perform. I got to know her and we became actually friends. And she just before I think she was leaving to go abroad somewhere, she said to me, okay, if there's anything you need, any help you need, just let me know. And so that's kind of how that turned out. It was like from a real life-threatening type of experience to the actual woman who I believe in V does. And I know my friend kind of let me know that she did it. But that the very person who did this to me, to let them know that I knew that they had done it, but to end up as, we weren't like the best of friends, but we were very cordial to each other. And I think what I learned from that is that you don't have to be enemies with somebody who does practice the dark arts. And I'm not saying that I'm ever comfortable with anybody who practices the dark arts. I'm not. But I just felt that in my circumstance that I didn't want to make her into an enemy, because if this woman could make me that sick, imagine what else she could do. And I just didn't have that capability of doing what, protecting myself from someone like that. Not at that time. And I don't know if even now, I think that you just have to again, you have to make sure that you're protected always and put that shield up or that bubble around you so that these type of individuals won't come and mess with you. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to get across, is that being a medicine woman meant that I had to deal with a lot of negative experiences. And it's not that I called all of them upon myself. It was that I think that spirit knew I could deal with it. And I can't help people if I don't understand how the dark arts how they work, or how the people who are dealing in dark magic and dark sorcery, or shape-shifting, how they work and how they think and what they do and what I have to know all that to help people. So with these three experiences, I just realized that there's just so much I don't know even now about what these people do. But I do know that I have a sixth sense when I come across somebody like this, and I'm not afraid of them. I just don't, I'm not afraid. As I've gotten older, um, I just, I'm a warrior for light. And I just know um, that my guardian angels and my spirit guides will protect me. And I have loved ones who will protect me. So, and I just have to be smart about things. I don't go looking for a fight. I don't go looking for problems. And if I do come across having a problem, I try to figure out a way how to resolve it in the best possible way. And so I don't think anybody should go looking for these types of people and causing problems or trying to figure out, oh, can I be your apprentice? Because people like this don't want an apprentice. The one thing that I realized about each one of these types of witches is that they're very self-serving. Service to self is basically who they are. And there's not even enough room in there for them to believe in the devil, in Satan or whoever. They are so into number one priority, which is themselves, that there's not enough room for anything else. And as far as the first gal who was possessed, even in her possession, she was very narcissistic. Um, it's very service to self. And with the second gal, it was all about youth. It was all about doing whatever she could possibly do to keep herself preserved. And it's a type of a psychopathic mindset to that kind of thinking. And then with the gal who, the Persian witch that I dealt with in my dancing, she was willing to help out a friend without hearing all the details. And you have to think about somebody like that. She was willing to hurt me without knowing me and without really hearing every side to the story, which would be nothing on my end, because I just couldn't even believe my friend would have done that. So needless to say, she wasn't really much of a friend. So after that incident, I backed away from that friendship pretty quickly. So you just don't ever know what's going to be brought your way, but you have to just follow your instincts and follow your, as I said before, your gut. Because if you don't, you can get into a lot of trouble. And when I studied with different people on the medicine way, the one thing that I learned is that I could hear stories about skinwalkers and shapeshifters and dark shamans. And I heard different things that had happened. But until you experience stuff like that yourself, it doesn't really ever hit home. I mean, it's like watching a scary movie. You can hear anything about a scary movie. And then when you see the movie, it, kind of visually, you can kind of get the idea of what they're talking about. But it's a movie, and that is probably, even if they say it's based on facts, well, this is Hollywood. They're not really going to tell you, they're going to kind of stretch the truth a little bit. But I'm telling you that there's a lot about this type of, these types of experiences where the truth isn't stretched. It's really worse than what you think. And when you're dealing with it yourself, you really have to figure out where you're coming from and who you're walking with. And when I say walking with, I mean what side you're on. So you're on the side of light, then you're going to have some help. If you're on the side of dark, you're just going to be consumed, because that's what happens. Is the darkness always consumes itself. It just does. So anyways, that's my story on the witches. And if anybody has any stories that they'd like to tell, you can leave them on the comments below. Or you can write us at dimensionalwalking@gmail.com. And I'll have that in the links below. And feel free to share your stories. Don't be shy. If anybody has any questions, had any experiences, needs some help, that's kind of what I do. I help people because of my experiences. I know I would have appreciated all the help I could get. So that's kind of, I think, important at this point, is we need to take care of each other and help each other out. So let's see here. So yes, I'm going to be on a podcast next week called Intention is Everything. It's from Paranormal Underground. It's a new podcast from them. And the hosts are Karen Frazier and Cheryl Knight Wilson. And so I think we're going to talk about dimensional walking. So I'll put the links for that, and I'll put the links for paranormalunderground.net, which is the website for the magazine. And then also Noreen, her YouTube channel, Paranormal Zone TV. I'm going to put a link down for that because she's wonderful. I just love her. So thank you all for listening in. I greatly appreciate it. And thanks for supporting us. I mean, we're still going at it and trying to figure stuff out, but we're hoping that the content that we give you is interesting, and that, maybe some good will come out of it. We're not always, we don't know what we're doing, but anyways, thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And I guess Michael will be next. So don't know what he's going to talk about, but it'll be really good. So take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.